Hi, my name's Julie Flowen, and this is my husband Dan. We're here to talk to you about trials, not trials like in a judge, but the trials that you go through in life. When was the last big, ugly, nasty trial that you had to go through? Or maybe you're going through one now. When we go through these trials, we often ask questions like, why would a loving God allow me to experience such excruciating pain? Or how could this possibly work in God's good for me to be going through so much and having to endure so much? Or simply, why me? This is not in my plans. I don't understand what you're trying to do, God. Paul tried to address these questions in in his letters to the Romans. In Romans 5:3-5, he writes, "But we rejoice in our suffering, knowing that suffering produces endurance, endurance produces character, and character produces hope." So let me get this right. Paul is telling me that we need to celebrate when we are in the midst of our trials. Have you ever tried that? I mean, I really do try and do what God tells me to do. But this is a pretty tall ask, isn't it? So let's break this down and see if we can gain some understanding. He starts off by saying suffering produces endurance. And that makes some sense to me, right? I mean, we've all heard the expression, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. There's a ring of truth in that, right? So I'm with Paul so far. Suffering can build endurance. But then he goes on to say, endurance builds character. How does that work? And how is he defining character here? I mean, character, a person can be said to have character if they display integrity, or if they're courageous or honest. These are all traits of someone who has character. I think we can say that. But were they born with that character? No. That character was built over time and through repetition, right? And where do we have our biggest learnings? We learn the most when we're going through our deepest valleys, right? So if we can endure through our deepest valleys, I can say, I believe, that God produces character. Would you agree? So then Paul goes on to say, character produces hope. Well, how does that produce hope? And for that matter, hope in what? Hope in our desired outcome? Nah, we know better than that, right? Well, intellectually anyway. But if endurance is built over time and character is built over time, I think that in time, over time, we might also experience God's trustworthiness and faithfulness. And when we're going through those times, God has invariably demonstrated to us that he loves us unconditionally and that he has our best interest at heart and that he will never leave us. I think God stacks one reminder of his goodness on top of another, on top of another, on top of another, until we learn to trust him in all situations. And that is where the hope is. So the next time that you're suffering through one of God's trials, even though it's against your instinct, you can say, I will rejoice in this. I will be happy as I go through this trial because I know that hope is on the way.
That's good stuff, Julie. As you were talking, I was thinking about back when I was dying of cancer and I was really struggling with what on earth God was doing here. And then one morning my dad gave me a call and he said that he thought that he had heard God tell him something that he wanted to pass along to me. Dad said, I believe God is saying, I trust you to stand tall here, Dan. I'm going to be with you. You can do this. I want you to focus completely on me and I'll take care of the rest. He said, God is going to use this to his glory. There's going to be a miracle. We don't know what the miracle is yet, but we walk in faith, knowing God is in charge. He said, son, God has drafted you to be in his army and you are at the point. And God is right there with you. We don't know how the battle ends, but you're going to be okay. Don't despair. Hold on to your faith. Whatever happens, It's all good. Man, that was hard to hear. As I sit there on the phone, just trying to let Dad's words sink in, after a while, this deep sense of honor came over me. Like God had just assigned to me this amazing, special mission. And I did not want to let God down. Oh, don't get me wrong, I was petrified. But it really did feel like an honor. Dad's perspective was a game changer for me. As I sat about and thought about that throughout the day, I sat down that evening and wrote in my journal about being on point. Here's what I wrote. On point, all your senses go on high alert. You hear the faintest whisper. You spot the slightest movement ahead. You can smell everything and detect the enemy's foul stench from miles away. On point, talking too much can be fatal. So you watch and you listen. On point, you constantly pray as you're walking. And when you're under attack with bullets whistling by your head and mortars exploding all around you, you block out all else and focus on your platoon leader. Your platoon leader frequently uses signals to communicate with you, so you dare not take your eyes off him for long. He gives an order and you obey it immediately and without hesitation, because you know he is the only one who's going to get you through this. You see, on point is where you learn about faith and the power of obedience.
Dan and I are members of a C12, which is a Christian roundtable here in the Tampa Bay area. And a few years ago, they produced a video that highlighted how God guided us and developed us through a path of adversity. Take a look.
For PM2, how business really impacted our marriage came really through a trail of adversity. It came from a really rough start. First 3 years were really, really hard. We decided to turn the company at that point over to God and changed our mission statement, let all of our employees and contractors know that they now work for a company that is owned by God. A few years later, I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic melanoma, and I was given 8 months to live. And at that point, we were told we should make preparations for me to leave.
I'd been in business all my life, but I had never run a company, and there were so many different things that I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. And the people that were in our C12 group, as well as the other ones from the other groups within our area, all pulled together to help me and teach me what I needed to do, the questions that I needed to ask, the things that I need to be watching, and helped me keep things together during the time that Dan was absent. And I was preparing to run the company.
You know, we were preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. And God brings you to the valley because he wants you to get close, and I've never been so close to God than when I was right there in the desert with him. Well, in the last few years, we've seen a huge, in my opinion, a huge transition in our marriage. And for me, it was based in seeing a side of Julie and a strength in Julie that I'd never seen before. This is the most tenacious person I know. She was going to make sure that I stayed here.
What I told the doctors was I didn't want a husband, I wanted this husband. And what are we going to do about it? And so as we prayed about it, Dan got a very clear message that God was going to let him live. I mean, as he went through his diagnosis and as he went through, all the things that God took him through to prepare us for whatever it is he has for us, it got really ugly, and people, were outside. They were outside of our little cocoon. We're saying she's delusional. because I really wasn't facing the fact, and he's dying right here and she's not talking about it. And I'm just saying, he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. We just need to do what God brings us to do, and that's what we did. And so it was important for me to learn that obedience, which was not really in my nature.
Right.
Stop laughing.
It was about a 6 or 7 year journey up and down roller coaster. And as of about a year and a half ago, I've been declared in remission. It's the first time they ever used the R word. He has blessed PM2 in ways he's never blessed PM2 before. Our marriage has never been stronger. Julie and I have said it many times that for us it was never about the cancer. It was about how he was going to change me and grow us through this experience, and he's used that for that very purpose.